Hey everyone, I'm so grateful for today because we are kicking off a brand new series looking at the life in the book of James. But let me just tell you this, James, many scholars would say that he had a really kind of unique upbringing because his brother was Jesus. Can you just imagine if your like sibling was Jesus? Like, you're like, of course you did it right. Of course you're perfect. Of course, like just the sincere striving to actually be something, and then you're like, oh, compared it to Jesus, my brother, man. And just the cognitive dissonance he probably felt. The scholars would say that he really wrestled with faith. And it wasn't until post-resurrection that I think he became fully aware of who his brother truly was. We see this in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 when Paul is telling this church in Corinth, he's saying to them, he's like, hey, I've taught you a lot. But in regards to matters of first importance, Jesus was here, he died, he rose again, he ascended, and he's coming back. And then Paul goes on to detail all the people that Jesus post-resurrection visited, and he names James. James becomes the leader of the church in Jerusalem. And he kind of grows in stature, he grows in leadership, and he writes this book, and I'll just tell you that this book is really, really punchy. Many people would say it's Proverbs 1 through 9 meets the Sermon on the Mount. And what you'll have in chapter 1, there's a whole conversation about wisdom and how you hear. And then from 2 to 5, it's about 12, just kind of punchy, just straight to the point, no fluff, just like hitting you between the eyes of what it means to have everyday faith. And so, over the next number of weeks, we're going to be walking through this book of the Bible, verse by verse. I have a dream. I'm not sure if it will be possible because there's a lot of large books in the Bible, but my hope is at the end of my time, we have gone through every book of the Bible. All right, so we're starting with the short ones first. All right, so we got James. But when I was in college, I had this amazing mentor. His name was Hal. Hal passed away a few years ago, but he meant the world to me. And I'll never forget my first day as an intern with Hal. He gave me this book called The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. If you've ever read that book, you know that it just opens up by saying these 3 words: life is difficult. This is a great truth, one of the greatest truths. It is a great truth because once we truly see this truth, we transcend it. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know the first time that someone told me that life was going to be hard, that life was going to be difficult, that suffering is going to be part of our formation and our spiritual journey. And I think oftentimes for many of us, due to opportunities or privilege or where we live or what we do, in many ways we can try to protect ourselves from any sense of difficulty. But doesn't it just find us? With the sickness of a brother or sister, from the loss of a job or a friend, from the breakdown of a relationship, from something not going the way that you hoped. And this is what is required of every one of us, is even in the midst of the difficult, the hard, the messy, the suffering, is how do we have everyday faith? How do we have the kind of resolve that even in the midst of it, we somehow see that this is an invitation to greater formation? And so this is what James writes to a church that's scattered all around the ancient Near East. He's writing to remind them to have everyday faith. And so that's what we're going to be tackling. If you have a Bible, you can turn with me to James chapter 1. James chapter 1. And it says this: James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes scattered among the nations, which is why many scholars say that James had 12 kind of punchy kind of pieces from chapters 2 through 5, one for each of the tribes. And then he says these words: consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Now, when's the last time you considered it pure joy when you experienced a trial? That's the last time you're like, oh man, this is a really difficult, troubling time. Pure joy. It's usually not our first response. But here what you have is you have James saying, oftentimes in the trial and the trouble is a chance to actually help you become mature and complete. Now, mature and complete in the original language literally means this: a whole and integrated life. A whole and integrated life. Another way of saying integrated life would be one soul, heart, mind, body. Integrated, one soul. This is what it means to have this sense of mature and complete faith. You're not fractured, you're not splintered, you're not divided. There is this beautiful integration. And what mature and complete that James is pointing the people to is the kind of wholeness where one lives a completely integrated life, where our actions are consistent with the way of Jesus. That's what everyday faith is that we would actually live our life in a way that it would be as if Jesus were guiding us and doing it as us, through us, with us. And this is the hope, is that as we grow, the only way that we can actually become, in James' mind, the most mature and the most complete is by experiencing suffering. And so, what I want to talk about today is wisdom. And I'm actually going to tell you that if you actually follow what James teaches, you will increase your wisdom tenfold. And I think every one of us would say, in this day and age, I would love to be a lot wiser. And what James is going to showcase is that there are trajectories that are right in front of us, and the invitation is, how whole do you want to be? Or how divided do you want to live? And so you're going to see, and we'll break this down in a moment, that there is this kind of vision that James has. And the vision is for wholeness. And this idea of wholeness, again, is integrated or one-souled, being one-souled. Now, what James begins to kind of unpack here in this little kind of few verses is that you're going to have in your life, you are going to have trials, troubles, whatever you want to call it. It's just going to happen. But this trial is an invitation, and that by faith, if you have it, in the face of the trials and troubles, it will actually produce perseverance or endurance in some translations that will actually help you become mature and complete, or one soul. And what James is going to say is, well, how do you do this? How do we become the kind of person that is one soul, that is whole and integrated? Look what he says in verse 5. He continues on, and he says this: if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Now, what's interesting here is you see that James is saying, well, if you find yourself in trials or troubles, the thing that you need to do is to ask God for wisdom, to ask God for help. But oftentimes in the face of trials and struggles and sufferings, instead of actually asking God for wisdom, help me in this situation, what ends up happening is we allow doubt to creep in. Now, James is pretty adamant about those who doubt are like a wave that is blown by the sea. Like, it calls them double-minded. Here's what you have to understand. It is not a wrong or bad or sinful thing to have doubts. In the Jewish mindset, doubts that paralyzed you, doubts that made you not actually move forward or move towards God, that was the issue. That was the problem. But if you had doubts and you still kept taking steps towards Jesus, like, I believe, but help me with my unbelief. Even at the Great Commission, it's Jesus appears and he begins to speak to them, and it says some believed and some doubted. Like, doubts aren't the problem, but it's when all of a sudden you doubt that something happens. And what happens in this is you go from being one-souled, and you see it. The writer says double-minded. Or another way in the original translation is you become two-souled. Meaning you become split, fractured, divided, waffling, wondering, struggling. And this is where we have to have the sense of wisdom. There is so much in leadership, pastoral leadership. There's so much happening in the world. There's so much struggle and trial and trouble and suffering that I don't have a clean and clear answer for. But you know what I can do? I can choose to doubt. I can choose to allow myself to be paralyzed. Or I can actually ask God for wisdom. And it says that God actually gives to his children, those who ask. And I think oftentimes many of us go through our day asking God to bless our day, asking God to bless the last 10%, because we've already done 90% of the work, and we're like, oh, I should pray. Just bless the last 10%. But how many of us can we honestly look going, I don't know the right, most faithful next step. God, give me wisdom. I'm asking for help. One writer says that there are 3 prayers, and those prayers are, please, I'm sorry, and help. Please, Lord, please. Or I'm sorry for my choices, or help. And it's in those moments when you can actually find yourself going, God, help me with my finances. Help me with my formation in faith. Help me make sense of the chaos of our world. But don't allow me to stay paralyzed or sidelined or stuck. Let me keep taking steps. I believe. Help me with my unbelief. Help me. The writer continues on, James, and he says this, verse 9. Believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position. But the rich should take pride in their humiliation, since they will pass away like a wild flower. For the sun rises with a scorching heat and withers the plants. It blossoms, fall, and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away even while they'll go about their business. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. And so again, James begins to say, hey, those who actually stand the test, who ask God for help, and they receive this crown, this crown. This is like this heavenly crown, like, well done, good and faithful servant. And I think every single one of us, we don't want to get to the end of our life and go, man, I think I did okay. I think we want to get to the end of our life and we want to hear God say, well done. But it's not just in the well done where I find myself going, wow, I did what I was supposed to do. It's in the trials and the struggles that whenever I can slow myself down and quiet those doubts, because I don't want to be too sold. But I can ask for wisdom, and somehow I can see a way through. That the wisdom is going to lead to faith. The faith is going to lead to endurance. The endurance is going to lead to being whole and integrated, living in a way that's consistent to the values and the actions and the way of Jesus. Look at verse 13. We'll read a few more verses and then make sense of all this. He then flips it from troubles and trials to temptations. He says in verse 13, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. So don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of all he created. Now, I think this is really, really interesting, because what James is pointing to and painting is that there are two directions we can actually go. In one sense, when we experience trials, we can look up. Troubles, we can look up. We can have faith. We can grow in endurance. We can become one souled. But then there's another direction that he begins to kind of paint. And this direction, I'm a terrible drawer. I'm sorry. But there's another way. And this way, if you think about it, when you are someone who doubts, all of a sudden, those doubts are going to lead to temptation. And the temptation isn't from God. Oftentimes when you're too sold and you're fractured and you're splintered and you're doubting, and all of a sudden you're like, I need something that's going to make me feel okay. I need something that's just going to take away the struggle. This is just going to numb out the noise. It's just going to just make me feel something. And I'm sure over the last couple of weeks, you have felt something like that. And we all have our counterfeit gods, as Tim Keller would call it, the places we go in hopes that that thing will make us feel okay. And you know the story of the golden calf. Moses and Joshua are up meeting with God on the top of Mount Sinai. It's been up there for days and days and days. And the whole nation is like wondering, with this sense of anxiety, are they going to come down? Have they left? What's happening? Are we in trouble? And they can hear the clouds and the thunder and the lightning and the rain. They can see it all. And they're just having this sense. And someone just says, well, let's just take all the jewelry and let's make an idol. And so they end up shaping and forming a golden calf. And what is it? What is just an idol? Again, it's something that will help me feel okay. Something to put my anxiety on to make me feel okay that's other than God. And you know what's amazing? When Moses sees it, he comes down the mountain after spending time with God. He's got the 2 stone tablets, the 10 commandments. And he sees them, and he sees them worshiping and dancing the rave around this golden calf. And what does he do? He breaks the tablets. And he gets so frustrated with the people that he has them break down the gold and the golden calf and get it to a point where it's like sand, pebbles. And he mixes it up, and he says, drink it. And he makes the nation of Israel drink it. And I've always wondered that, why? Because it's almost as if, like, as a mentor and as a leader for the Jewish people, he's like, you're going to have to learn how you will handle and face your anxiety. You're going to have to learn what you're going to do when you experience doubt or worry. You're going to have to understand that you are going to walk this life and you are going to have troubles and trials, and it can lead you to wholeness. But I'm telling you, is you're not just going to have troubles and trials, but when you doubt, you're also going to invite temptation. And this is unbelievable to me, because it's that tempting that something begins to get unlocked inside of us. In verse 15, the words that James uses is profound. He says, then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. And he'll often say that when you're tempted, it's almost like you're being lured away, enticed. And the word actually is a fishing term. In the original language, it's delesio. And that literally meant like you have been baited. And oftentimes, this is what the enemy does. It finds you being kind of off kilter, off center, not grounded in the way of your belovedness, not grounded in the Spirit, not centered in the way of Jesus. And all of a sudden you find yourself a little wobbly, and all of a sudden what ends up happening is the temptation leads to some form of desire. And the desire, and sometimes in the church we shame desire, there are really, really good desires. How to be a good mom, how to be a good, faithful husband, how do I be a good Christ follower? Those are great desires. But there's also desires that are in our moments of wobbliness, in our moments of doubt, and the times when we feel two-souled, double-minded, that all of a sudden that desire and looking for something that's going to make us feel okay leads us to sin. And this is what James is saying. And when you go down this pathway, and the enemy every single day trying to steal, kill, and destroy, every single day trying to steal, kill, and destroy your joy, every day trying to steal, kill, and destroy, and just trying to lure you and entice you to waffle, to forget. And it's in that we often find ourselves desiring something that's other than God, and choosing something that is less than. That's literally what sin means, to choose and make a decision that's less than what God intended for you. And whenever you sin against your brother and sister, what are you doing? You're making them feel less than. And the whole piece of what James will say is that when you find yourself caught up in temptation, it's going to lead you to desire. It's going to lead you to sin. And what's that going to lead to? Death. The death of soul, death of joy, death. And I don't know if you've ever experienced people who have been, and you've just almost watched that stuff has happened, and all of a sudden you can just see them start to waffle. And then you can just see like the enemy just putting some bait on the end of a hook and just casting it right in front of them. And there's something inside their precious little heart that wants to be okay. And all of a sudden they're like, this thing, glittering image, I think it will make me feel okay. And without even knowing it, they're hooked. And that choice leads to such pain, death, and collateral damage. And so, with all of this, I think every one of us goes, well, I know the one thing that's consistent, I'm going to face trials, and I know that I'm going to face temptation. If you are human and breathing, you are going to face trials, and you're going to face temptation. But I'm telling you, whatever way you want to look at it, wisdom is your way through this. Because if you start to doubt, that enemy is going to tempt you. But if you can ask for help in the face of the trial, in the struggle, in the suffering, something profound can happen. Now, I want to talk about just 4 requirements to overcoming trials and temptations. 4 requirements. And I think if you actually put these in, they're going to help you live wiser. And when you live wiser, you're actually going to live with everyday faith, and you're going to live with endurance, and you're going to become one-souled, more integrated, more looking like and living like the way of Jesus. And the first one is this: E plus R equals O. It's a mathematical formula. It's a leadership quote by a man by the name of Jack Canfield. And this is what he would teach. E plus R equals O. Events plus response equals outcome. You do not control the events most of the time. The only thing that you control is your response. And depending on your response dictates the outcome. You could put any situation into this. Your kid shows up past curfew. Your husband doesn't do what he said he would do. Your wife is late. You can go through all of this and go, okay, there's stuff that I don't control, but how am I going to choose to respond that's actually going to help me live a more whole and integrated life? All I have control over, it's not the past, it's not tomorrow. The only thing that we all have control over is this present moment. And the choices we make with this present moment dictate the outcomes that come. So your response matters. If you find yourself just starting to actually doubt, call time out. Ooh, I got control over this. I don't want to be double-minded. I'm going to ask for help. There's a woman in here. She's awesome. She's a Packer fan, but she's awesome. But she'll often text me. And anytime I can tell when she texts me, she's like in this place. And it's like, it's just sort of like waffling. And she'll just tell me, Pastor, I just need you to pray for me. I'm praying. And I love it because she's living this verse out. She's recognizing, man, I know if I go this, then all of a sudden the enemy's going to go, and my mind and my heart and choices, and it's not going to be good for my soul. But you know what? I have control and I have responsibility, and because of my responsibility, it's going to change the way I respond to the event. And it changes the mental mindset. The second requirement to overcome trials and temptations is you have to discern between focus and flee. What do I mean by this? This is a great Charles Swindoll quote. He was a great pastor at EV Free Church in Fullerton, amazing writer. But he would often say, in the middle of this, you have to discern, is this fleeing time or is this focus time? Meaning, if all of a sudden you know, ooh, I am feeling like I'm starting to waffle, or I'm feeling myself kind of start to fracture, I gotta focus. I gotta focus and recognize these trials, they can help me have everyday faith, and that can actually give me perseverance or endurance. That's gonna actually make me mature and complete in my faith and more whole. But if I find myself drifting into temptation, you have to run. You have to flee. It is not a passive word in the New Testament. It is an aggressive urgency that you have to run. If any of you have ever done Financial Peace University, FPU, Dave Ramsey will use this example all the time of a gazelle. And if you've ever watched the National Geographic Channel, see a safari, and it's always a British accent. There he is, the king of the jungle, just watching and waiting. That's actually more Australian, but it's okay. And you start going down this whole this pathway, and you're just watching this massive creature, and then all of a sudden you see a gazelle, and the lion just begins to chase it. And what does that gazelle do? It runs or it dies. It's just very, very simple. And sometimes I think we're like, no, it's not that bad of sin. It's not that bad. I mean, it's just like one website. I mean, it's not that bad. It's just maxing out like one more credit. It's not the credit card. It's not that bad. I mean, like just saying this one thing about her. I mean, she's Everybody knows it. I'm just saying it. And all of a sudden, we've just minimized sin. And yet, when you find yourself recognizing, oh my gosh, this is not the heart of God. This is not the desire of God. This is not the will of God. This is not going to actually lead me to become more mature and complete. And all of a sudden, what am I going to do? I got to flee that. I got to step back from that. I got to engage and get help from that. And the truth is, this isn't like just a few people on the planet. This is every one of us. And this is why I think for so many of us, it's hard for us to take sin really, really seriously, because oftentimes there's so much shame attached to it. I don't like shame, and I don't like shade. I don't like that. But what I do appreciate is when I can actually recognize, oh, what is being put before me is not actually going to help me become the man I hope to be, the Christ follower I want to be. And so there's things in our life that we just got to look at and go, this isn't helping me. It might feel good. It might look good. It might, whatever it might do, but it's not going to lead you to become whole and integrated and live a life that's consistent with Jesus. And anything that's not doing that, flee. Run. Because all it's going to do is going to lead you on a pathway to a death of a soul. So how do you do this? Well, this is where the third requirement to overcome trials and temptations is you have to relentlessly play it out. Now, if you were at Chicago Fellowship, some of you men were there, I talked about this. My son and I were fishing. And I was fishing with him and my father-in-law, which was just a terrible decision. Never fish with your father-in-law when he's actually a good fisherman and you're not. It's just not good. And so I'm over on one side fishing and just not catching a thing. And then all of a sudden, I just keep hearing my son and my father-in-law, oh, we got another one, Dad, how many do you have? And I'm like, I got none. Oh, you got skunked, we're on number 5. And I'm like, okay. And they just keep saying this and keep doing it. And the competitiveness in me. And you know the power of a mother-in-law or father-in-law. Nothing can make you doubt yourself and become too sold, get tempted and lead you to death. And so I'm just having this moment, and I start to think about this, and as I look over and I start to think about a fish. And I'm like, that's interesting. Can you imagine if this fish was just swimming? It's just swimming. And all of a sudden it just sees this fly. It's a perfect fly. And it's about to bite it when all of a sudden his buddy swims up and goes, don't do it. And he's like, why? It's a fly. It's going to be so good. It's glittery. It's amazing. He's like, no, you don't understand. There's a hook on it. And it's going to go right through your jaw. And on the other end of the hook is this thing called a line. And that line is connected to a fishing rod. And that fishing rod is being held by a 7-year-old who doesn't care about your face. And it's going to just push you all around. And finally, you're going to get tired out, and he's going to bring you in. And then they're going to rip you off that hook. And then they're going to stand you in front of 7 cameras and 1 grandma's iPad taking a picture of you and like this. And then they're going to open up a cooler, and they're going to put you on a bag of ice. They're going to close the cooler, and they're going to continue on. And then after a few hours, they're going to load the boat up onto the trailer. They're going to move the cooler into the back of the truck, and they're going to drive for 45 minutes home. And then they're going to get home. They're going to bring the cooler inside. And then all of a sudden, they're going to start cutting up tomatoes and onions and cilantro, guacamole, pico de gallo. They're going to put all of this together. They're going to take corn tortillas. And then they're going to set up this charcoal grill and it's going to start cooking, and you're going to start to smell all this. You're like, man, that smells really, really good. And then they're going to like cut you in half, and they're going to put you on the grill. And then they're going to cut you up, and they're going to make fish tacos. How good does that fly look now? And honestly, that's what you have to do, is you have to play it out. If I say yes to this, will it help me become who I want to be? If I say yes to this, if I grab hold of it, if I run to this, if I choose this, who is it going to make me to be? If I react in this way, if I get amped in this way, if I make an assumption about another person in this way, is it going to help me to become who God wants me to be? You have to relentlessly play it out. And lastly, it's the most important one. Never, ever stop asking God for help. You have to keep asking God for help. I wish I could wave a magic wand and say there will be no more trials, no more temptations, no more troubles. I wish I could do that. But you know what I can say? There's going to be more trials and more troubles and more temptations, because that's actually biblically honest. So what are you going to do about it? And whether you're young, whether you're in your 20s, whether you're a high school student, whether you've been a Christ follower for decades, trials, troubles, and temptations are coming after every one of us. So how will we respond? What in your life right now is causing a sense of wobbliness? What in your life right now is causing you to maybe doubt? And just think about the last week. Where has it led you? How has the enemy just kind of fed off that desire and created that temptation? And what did you run to? And after the fact, having 4 slices of chocolate Portillo's cake, how did you feel? Because all of that is just in those moments, you're like, man, in a moment it felt really, really good. And that's the trickiness of sin, is in a moment it feels really, really good. But after the fact, it just doesn't help you become wiser or more Christ-like. And so, this week, my prayer, my hope, is that at any moment you experience a trial, see it as a chance to become more mature and complete, more whole, more one-souled, and ask God for help. And if you find yourself doubting, play it out. Play it out. Recognizing the truth is, you just have to discern, is this a chance to focus or to flee? And the only thing that you have control over is your response. And depending on how you choose to respond by asking God for help, it will dictate the kind of outcome. And I hope for every one of us, we're making choices that lead to an outcome that helps us become more Christ-like. Let's pray. God, thank you. Thank you for being such a good Father. Lord, I pray that nothing that came out of my mouth would feel shame-based. But God, I pray that it would just be true for all of us, that we know that enemy wants to entice us, wants to lure us, wants to bait us. And so God, I pray that you would keep our congregation one-souled, longing to live a whole and integrated life, longing to live a life that is consistent with the values and the beliefs and the way of Jesus. Protect us from being two-souled, divided, fractured, unhealthy, and help us trust you even in the midst of the trial, the trouble, and the temptation. We love you, Lord. And all God's people said, amen. Amen.